Et maintenant, pour notre dernier talk, ça va être un format spécial de table ronde. Ce sera le dernier avant la pause. J'espère que vous êtes toujours bien réveillés parce qu'on va passer du français à l'English. I invite to come on stage Emmanuel Vignon, CEO of Sicara, Yassine Tahi, and Minta Karlsson from Kinetix and Scenario to come up on stage to explore what generative AI enables from the gaming world. We will explore how gamers will be able to generate personalized emotes for their 3D avatars. Get ready for an incursion into the future and customization and expression in gaming, where 2D videos transform and dynamic 3D animation. Emmanuel, Yassine, Minta, the floor and the coach is yours.
Thanks, everyone. Yassine, you have a microphone on your right. So thank you for being there. It's really a pleasure to welcome you. Let me just introduce both of you before we go for a video. So Minta, you work for a company called Scenario. So the video will describe in a little bit more details what is Scenario about. What we can say is that you have a rich background in professional art, editorial work, and also fine-tuning of generative AI models, which will be very interesting for us today. In fact, you excel in merging the two worlds, the world of generative AI and the world of traditional artwork. And this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about creativity in the gaming industry here. You have also theater design skills, and so you leverage your theater design skills and your editorial experience to guide your artistic endeavors with AI. So thank you for being there, Minta. We'll have a great discussion. Yassine, you are a co-founder and the CEO of Kinetix. So same for Minta, you will show us a video that will describe what Kinetix does. You are born in Morocco, you graduated from HEC Paris and Sciences Po as well, congratulations. You are a big fan of video games, so I don't know how many hours per day you play video games. I don't know if this is true. So you stop right now, okay, maybe you have kids and wives, I don't know. Potentially it will change your organization of the day. But anyway, you are a big fan also of animated films, and thus you chose to leave your passion, your video game passion, and to create this company. And so you founded Kinetix in 2020. Before that, you had an experience in strategy consulting and VC. So maybe it helps you to drive your company very well. And it also helps you to be in the front seat of the potential of AI technologies. So you have, through these skills, the ability to have an overview of what's going on here in this market for 1 year. Under your leadership, Kinetix has built a leading AI and animation technology. So you will talk about that also in your video. And your goal is to enable anyone to bring avatars to life in video games, animation, and immersive content. Okay, so let's go for your video. Let's start with the video of Kinetix. And Yassine, I think you want to make the voiceover over it.
Hi everyone, so I will just voice over so you understand what's happening on the screen. So imagine you're in your favorite game. Usually you can buy dances, like for example in Fortnite people are buying dances that are made in the game. With our technology, basically you can customize your own moves in the game. So basically you open your camera, your phone camera, or you can put any video from TikTok, YouTube, or any video basically. A mono camera, and our algorithms are able to recognize the movement, to compute it in the cloud, and then to send back the output directly in the game, so that the gamers can use this output directly in their favorite game. So basically there is a compute time, as you can see, and then congrats, your animation is ready. So not only we're able to create the 3D animation from a single camera video, but we're also able to remap it in any kind of avatar. So now it's more like a girl avatar, but you can have also like a monster or like a small dwarf. We're able to bring to life any kind of avatars for the gamers and for the creators directly in the 3D space. So we're embedded directly in the games, and we're currently embedding this technology in many big games. Some of them you may know, for example, Second Life, that is like kind of the iconic metaverse platform, but we're also integrating our technology in many other 3D platforms and directly in-game.
That seems awesome. So let's go for scenario now.
Yeah, so I'm giving you, there's so many tools on Scenario. I just actually wanted to show you a typical workflow, in this case for an indie developer, for example, someone who works with pixel art. The idea behind Scenario is that you can really take a custom style, whether you're customizing it on platform using different models that we have, or whether you're customizing it with your own training data, that you're taking that model and you're actually going through the entire creative process. So yeah, whenever we want to start the video, we can go into it. Awesome. So in this case, I'm just showing how easy it is to create this little pixel art house in a top-down oblique style. It's a very straightforward use case, something you might do for any typical game on your handheld or otherwise. You can go and you can edit it in our canvas. You can take that final edit and you can in fact go through quite a few different iterations. In this case, we're also showing as well how you can take this through to animation at the end. So you'll see a cute little animation. But the idea being that all of this can be leveraged not just on platform, but through our API. So our platform actually exists for artists, but also for artists to work with the developers on their team and to stage the workflows that they want to integrate in game or on their own internal programs, which is very important to these teams. The last piece that I think is a great feature, but I don't know if it gets enough hype, is we actually have a really nice pixelization feature, which you'll see at the end here once it's done with all the little edit. This kind of brings it full circle, because those who are familiar with generative AI and image AI will know that latent diffusion is not necessarily ideal for a perfect pixel grid. It doesn't really learn in pixels, so you have to remind it what pixels are supposed to do in pixel art. And in this case, we're actually allowing users to pixelize it. Then you can make, super simple. This took me 20 minutes to do. It saves a ton of time for an artist who has trained their work, or has built, work on platform, whichever they prefer. And then they can reduce that time in their own workflow, which for a lot of artists, they're very overworked, a lot of stuff on their plate, and it really helps get from point A to point B.
Thank you very much, Minta. I do have a first question to enter this, because since we are talking about creativity, what is creativity, and do you think what you do here is creativity in the same way that Van Gogh paints his picture?
Well, that's a really good question. I went to school for art, so the conversation around what is creativity is one that has been hashed out for hundreds of years. And I've written a little bit about the history of art, et cetera, but really we saw a big shift in this idea of what is creativity during the 1900s. That's when really, whether you're talking about dance and dance changing from ballet to contemporary, whether you're talking about actual fine arts and the shift from classical painting styles to these much more abstract or kind of different styles, I should say. There's so many different postmodern, modernist, etc. You can look at architecture as well. Art is rarely defined in modern times by the tool. It's much more often defined by the context and the intention. So if we're talking about is something creative, that's really stemming from the person using it. I think in both of the examples that we're seeing here, there's not any sort of fallacy or suggestion that the AI is initiating the creativity. It's intentionally the user.
One frame that we can have here to describe what is creativity is if the tools that you are using at Kinetix and Scenario allows you to create something that you would not have created if you didn't have these tools. Is it true? Are you going to create something that you would not be able to create? Or is it just, these tools are just productivity tools?
For us, it's actually a good introduction of why we're different in terms of AI positioning. we choose as a target audience the gamers and users that would never access 3D animation before. So today, if you're not a professional of 3D animation, you cannot create, and you cannot bring an avatar to life. You cannot create a Pixar movie. You cannot create, you bring to life your avatar for VR, AR, or any kind of 3D support, because you need heavy material. You need to put sensors in your body, go to a studio of mocap that costs $10,000 a day, or do professional animation, which takes 6 weeks of manual work to create only 1 minute of video. And this is only accessible for trained, professional, and skilled people. Since the beginning, our idea was, okay, how can we give tools to people that don't have these tools so that they can do new stuff? And the gamers actually was a pretty good target, because if you look at games like Minecraft or Roblox, all these kind of games, where people were giving some basic tools to create, and they're building whole universe and spending incredible number of hours just by super basic tools. So our tool basically enable people to express themselves, create storytelling, and bring these avatars to life to create their own stories and publish them in games or also in videos. There are a lot of trends now on TikTok on people creating content with their avatars and then publishing it on TikTok, and it has like billions views. So it's really unlock a huge potential creativity for people that will never have created this kind of content, and now they're able to do it. I think the parallel that we can draw is with like, if we look at the early generation of tools like After Effects or Photoshop, they were the first step, opening the market to video or photo editing. And then we had the Canva and the Figma that broadened even more the population of people that can create. And now we're going to a third generation, for me, of mass market creation. TikTok, I think, in the video editing and also Instagram filters, if we think that it's editing of photography, brought these first tools, so people now, everyone can edit a photo and post it in social media or create a cool video and put it on TikTok. In the future, in 3D, people will be able to create experiences and then post them on games or platforms. It will be super easy to create.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say we have a little bit of a different slant for ours. It really depends on scale. So if you're talking about an indie developer with a very, very small team and a very small budget, then yeah, in fact, this might be giving them access to something that they otherwise would not have had access to, that level of quality or that level of being able to conceptualize their vision. That being said, I work with a lot of our larger companies as well that use the platform, and in fact, the people who are using the platform and those teams absolutely can do everything that this tool is able to do. This simply supports their workflow in a way that it makes it really manageable and much faster. So in fact, the expectations are incredibly high for the quality output due to that fact, to the fact that these are artists who have spent their entire lives training a skill.
Yeah, speaking of that, to what extent can generative AI bring more customization in the gaming industry? Do you think, first of all, do you think it's an expectation from the users? And what are the answers that generative AI can bring to you?
Yeah, I have some elements. Customization is one of the biggest trends now on the gaming industry. We call it UGC, user-generated content. Because of many reasons. If you look at the platforms that are succeeding today, like Roblox, in terms of monthly active users, Roblox, Fortnite, that just build the creative mode, are the ones that are retaining. Like games want to have people staying, and when people are creating and exchanging assets that they create and consuming them, it creates a long LTV, like time spent on the platform by the users. So it's a huge challenge for the industry to bring these tools and create UGC platforms. So games are shifting towards that.
What can you do in the UGC specifically with generative AI? Is it just something about chatbot or chit-chat with a...
Everything. So we were talking about Copilot before. So example, Roblox, you can build games on top of the platform. So everyone can create their own game and publish it, and other players can play it. They introduced the feature of Copilot.
You mean the whole games, or just a universe within an existing game?
Everything. So it's basically, Roblox is like Unity or Unreal, basically, with the consumers on top of it. So basically, people will be able to build their own game publish it, and other people will be able to create it. So Roblox is not creating their own games. It's the players and creators who are building the game. And since they published the Copilot, for example, for the code, I don't remember like the latest figures, but it was like maybe 30 or 40% increase of code generated on the platform. So it increased significantly the number of experiences that can be created and the number of people that can create these experiences.
What is the business model behind this? And do you think that generative AI will change the business model of the gaming industry?
So there are many business models in the gaming industry. So before it was like you pay your game and you can play it. Then it was more a pay to win. You pay an asset that can help you win. Now we move to an era of, there is still advertisement, but the in-game purchase of assets for customization, for identity. So it's called a pay to customize your asset, is the winning model currently, and the one that is growing the most. If you look at Fortnite, they're selling 6 billion of assets on the platform. And like the dances, the cute dances that I showed you, they make $500 million every year. So it's a huge market, and the market for customization of assets is booming, expecting to be 600 billion market by 2030, around the avatar, the retail. One good figure that can give you like the perspective, Roblox, there are 60 million people and daily, and 20% of them customize their avatar look every day. So you go to work, you change your clothes, they change their avatar looks every day, and there are people creating, like artists in the platform, creating their designs for the clothes, and there are tools to help you create that. And generative AI will bring just so many much more possibilities to customize and do whatever you have in mind. And yeah, I think the growth of creativity and in AI will be mostly in these platforms because they're touching hundreds of millions of people. Of course, artists is a big market, and there will be more artists for me. But especially that the people that we don't consider are artists today, like we call them creators or gamers or users, will be the future target audience of these Gen AI tools.
Minta, I know you have a strong background in artificial intelligence. What are the challenges, the technical challenges, specifically in the gaming industry when it comes to generative AI?
I mean, there's a lot of technical challenges.
What are the three main?
The three main, okay. I think that we're still, so 2D is getting very close. And I think, let's start with what is going well. So 2D is getting really, really close in the gaming industry. One challenge that we see with 2D, specifically around customization, is that there are a lot of subtleties to a signature style, an artist style. What you or I might look at as, oh yeah, that's that style, like, you know, that it's been trained, we see the style, an artist has trained their work on it, we might see that as a success, but an artist might notice those very small details that to them are quite big and quite distinct because this is a piece of work that they're incredibly familiar with.
But do you think generative AI is, I mean, the purpose of generative AI is to generate 100% of the artist's job, or are you heading towards like a Pareto law?
I think that let's talk about what the artist's job is. I think that's even more important to understanding what we're talking about right now, because the artist's job is actually multiple artist jobs. When we talk about a piece of artwork that you see in a game, that's typically, sometimes on a small team, that will be one single artist who has made something from beginning to end. But typically, it's actually a large group of artists. And it comes from a concept that then has to pass through a first stage, it has to be overpainted, it has to be brought through to this later conceptualization. And each one of those stages requires a level of impeccability that doesn't break that chain. So while, no, we're not trying to replace artists outright, to be able to work inside this really, really, I mean, technically, artwork is technical work. To work with inside this very, very technical field, you need a product and you need an output that is impeccable, that an artist doesn't have to redo aspects of to be able to make it work. Because what's the point if they have to rework it in the end? When in also talking about challenges, we look at things like 3D, for example. We were talking about 3D before. 3D is one of those pieces that is just a little more challenging, because when we talk about what the AI is learning, it's not, I mean, it's a little more straightforward when we think about it in terms of, let's, for example, say like code or like human grammar, language, etc. Art is incredibly subjective. 3D art has rules, but those rules are still informed by some aspects that are subjective. And when you have that kind of chaotic piece of subjectivity put into it, you have to encapsulate much more than you maybe were originally expecting. And so we are still, the 3D era is coming, but it's still being refined. It's still not ready enough that an artist could work it into a pipeline, because it would be too much work.
I do have a kind of a provocative question. Wait,
Yeah,
you want to
just on that, also the difference and the technical challenge for 3D is that video, text, image, on internet you have billions of data sets. We can debate is it ethical or not to use them, but they're available. On 3D, there is way less data sets. On 3D animation, there is no data sets. Like there is maybe hundreds of hours of 3D animation with the equivalent video.
What's the plan?
So we create our own data sets. That's actually,
how much does it cost? I mean, does it destroy the business model?
Of what?
If you have to create your own data sets, or does it mean that only the big companies can do it? Otherwise,
we are a startup. We're doing it. We've been.
How do you do it? I mean, how many people did you hire to create your
we are
data sets?
about 35 people. We are also working with the mocap studios to do it. We invested a lot of money. We've been working since for 3 years to create our data sets. We're still heavily investing in data sets. We fundraised to do that. So.
And are you quick enough?
I would say that the big players like Unity, Meta are starting to create their own dataset as well. But the question is like, how can you be quicker than them and master? Like, it's a game of who has more data, the best models. So it's definitely a race. But in terms of quality in 3D, we're not there yet. Like, it's for the UGC. That's why also we start with the UGC, because an end user can accept. Like, you won't say that the movement is not perfect. If there is a small, movement that is not perfect, you won't notice it. But the professionals, when you show them something and they're 3D animators, they will see like, okay, like this movement was not perfect. Like, they will go in small details. It shows also that it's not ready for production for these people. But if you look at our algorithms 3 years ago and now, it will be funny to do the example, but the avatar was completely shaking and like it was horrible. But 3 years ago, we were showing that to animators. They were super impressed. And now we show them something that is almost perfect, and they're like, oh, now also the expectations of the 3D and like professionals went so high. So there's always room for improvement, and it's for me it's only the beginning of in terms of quality of what we can do with the generative AI.
Going back to what you said, Minta, before, do we still need an artistic degree to do the job, or do you think that through generative AI everybody can be an artist tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I am going to say that as an American, I don't think I've ever the idea of a degree being the reason why you're hired as an artist is, it might help you get into the room, but you're hired as an artist because you're talented. And so
how do you know he or she is talented?
Because you see their portfolio and their work.
Yeah, but how do you start? I mean, if you start, you have nothing.
People start when they're 10 years old drawing. I mean, the art field is a really specific
just like
field.
Coding, actually.
Yeah, in fact, of course, I mean, I went to school for art. Like, people do go to school for art, but that's to make connections. That's not, I mean, and to refine your understanding of course, like how art works, to get feedback from peers, etc. But that doesn't define your talent necessarily. Your talent.
Yeah, so we understood that artist degrees are useless. And
well, I mean, they're not useless, but it is a lot of money.
And do you think that generative AI will reduce the time necessary to train an artist to do the job?
No. I don't. I really don't. I think that the tools that you need to understand what good composition is aren't tools that the AI explains to you. And I think that really you do need to understand what makes good composition. I think we'll get more curational experiences rather than technical skill sets, but we've seen that over the years. I mean, the printing press, like we now don't need to use the printing press in the way that we used to. We created the printing press because we were handwriting and hand stamping everything prior to that. So like there's all these stages in technology where these very specific technical skills are not commoditized in the way that they used to be. It doesn't mean that they're not important, and art has always had a space for fine art and technical skill, but someone might not be hired necessarily on the basis of that technical skill set. That being said, you do need both pieces to be a competitive artist in the art world. You need to have a vision, you need to understand curation, and it's the difference between like an abstract piece of art. If you look at an abstract piece of art by someone who has really honed their craft, whether that's at school or not is debatable, but they've honed their craft, you can tell the difference between someone who's thrown paint at a canvas and like a Jackson Pollock painting and someone who has actually just thrown paint at a canvas. And it's interesting, like Jackson Pollock is a really great example because scientists have actually studied his work and it's all fractals. Like there is actually a difference in how the human mind sees patterns, and that's what art is.
Very good. Another topic that I wanted to cover as well is who are your competitor? And let me tell you a story. Something like 40 years ago, a researcher called Fred Jelinek, he worked as with IBM on NLP technologies. I'm a very big fan of NLP technos. And he had a team with linguistic and software engineers. And one day, a few of the linguistic guys of the team were sick, and so they didn't come to work for, let's say, 3 weeks. And then the performance of the system rose. And so after, when they came back, when the linguists came back, he just fired them. And he says, we don't need linguistic to build an NLP system. We just need software engineers. So my question is, who are your competitors? Are they software, I mean, pure generative AI players that will go to the artistic industry, or are they pure artistic players that go to the generative AI industry?
From a strategical point of view, what I see in the market is that distribution is key today. If you look at Adobe, they have a big distribution and they have editing tools. They introduced Firefly. I think they killed many, not killed, but at least they took a market from other startups. So even the big players are going fast. Usually we say, yeah, big players are not fast. I think they went pretty fast to integrate some AI technologies in many products. Adobe just acquired a company also in video editing last week, so it shows that they're going to that direction. So yeah, I think one of the big the people have distribution will be fighting back. Also Meta, for example, one of the most, there's OpenAI that everyone knows about, and then the second one is Character AI. They have 20% of the traffic of GenAI today. There was a study, I think OpenAI is 60%, Character is 20%, and the rest of the startup have all the rest on the B2C aspect. And now what Meta is calling AI agents is basically Character AI embedded in the products of Meta. When they have a distribution of 3 billion people that you can access to your AI agents in Instagram, WhatsApp, and other product, you're taking a huge part of the user base that were using this product. So I think the companies that have already a network and distribution have strong advantage.
So the frontier are not technical frontiers.
There are some winners, as OpenAI is, for me, is one of the winners today, but they're also working with Microsoft for distribution. So they're like partnering with the big strategic players. So that's on one angle is the distribution. On the other angle is the editing. I'll let maybe Minta have more words about that, but I'm convinced that once you generate something, it's cool. Okay, you have a first iteration, but then as you saw in Scenario, they have many editing tools and how you can fine tune and change and edit. And that's more editing. It's not only AI, it's also editing tools, which are super important for artists because, okay, you have a first iteration, but then you need to work on it. And to have this tool of editing that are made super well for the workflow of the artists it's another kind of skills, and very specific companies are building these tools.
Yeah, when we're talking about game design in particular, it's all about pipeline. It's about where in the pipeline does this fit, and who in the field, what competitors are already engaged in that pipeline. And there are certainly those who are. I mean, Firefly, Adobe's used by like so many artists. That being said, they don't offer yet customization. There's pieces that are not quite the same. It's not geared specifically towards game design. So there are differences there. And it is interesting for sure. We also look at others in the field, for example, like Midjourney. Midjourney is used by a lot of artists, but it doesn't fit in the pipeline. It's a step outside, and they don't necessarily have API, and it's not necessarily easy to customize. And so there are different competitors that do things well, and what we've heard time and time again from game studios and artists is whether or not they can actively fit it into the pipeline. What works well for us is being able to support everything through the API, because it allows either us or developers who feel motivated to easily leverage things for plugins. And so that is a part of our overall strategy. It's like, who are we plugging into to support? We have a Unity plugin, for example. So these are all just really important pieces to keep in mind.
And is there a strong barrier between 2D and 3D?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, there's
it's two different jobs.
It's a completely different. Yes.
And generative AI will not help to blur the frontier between the two?
Yeah, it might, but it's...
I see it happening a bit on the video. If you look at some video tools that appear right now, you have some 3D directly integrated in the video. So, for example, a pipeline for us is like you can create an avatar 3D animation and then render it in a 2D space. Like you see it in the video, but it's actually a rendered 3D. But some of the video are using video to go to the 3D animation part without going back to the 3D. So that's where I think it's a bit blurred. I'm not sure how it will play out on the video, because I'm not sure how you can control the animation, how can you play with it. But I'm curious to see, it's something I'm curious to know your opinion about that.
Yeah, I think that what we're really looking at here, and talking not as 3D, I mean, you're a 3D artist, sort of, you fall into that round, but most of the people here might not be 3D artists. And so when we look at the 2D image, in fact, the goal is really always to take that concept, whether it's a video or a 2D image, et cetera, and turn it into a piece of 3D art. So yes, I think AI will start to learn, and we do see examples of early versions of this, like CSM, Magic 123, et cetera, where they're taking a 2D image and turning that into 3D. I don't think necessarily the 2D image is helping in that stage. I don't think it's making it easier. I think, if anything, it's just the natural progression. You either come from a concept that has no concept art, so you're just prompting, or you come from something that either has a video or a piece of 2D art that is your concept art, and that's just the normal process.
Yes, I think we should spare some time for question now. So
yes.
I'll let some of you in the room to start asking interesting questions about creativity.
Want to speak in the box? Does someone have questions right here in the room? No questions?
I do have another question.
Yeah.
If it be.
Go on.
Yeah. What do you think about the strike that has disrupted Hollywood in the recent weeks?
Well, I come from a creative theater background. I have friends who work in the creative industries. I think AI was used as one of the talking points, but we can look back and see that this has a lot to do with streaming platforms, how compensation has shifted significantly in the last 2 decades for creative artists in that industry, and that there are a lot of pieces impacting.
Are we forced to go through this way to find the right balance between the artist and generative AI?
I think yes, because artists have been
So we will
underpaid
have
for a very
strikes
long
everywhere
time.
in the world?
Very likely. I mean, I come from the U.S. The working conditions are really not that nice for artists. They're compared, let's take a salary for an artist compared to a salary for a coder. huge differences. Most artists are hired as freelancers, so there's very little job security. There is a lot of pieces that are involved in the US conversation around art and compensation that have a lot to do with how artists are treated in commercial art. And that has, is impacted by AI, but is not necessarily a result of AI. This has been an issue for several decades, and it has just gotten worse.
Yassine, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's like basically it's like capitalism basically, and AI can polarize even more because like when we see that OpenAI or like these big companies, especially the one that has distribution, are using this AI again to create even more monopoly. And when they're training on the work and assets that were created by artists, and not only artists, but if you create text and it's used to train the algorithm, basically it's trained on knowledge and creations, and it will give more power to a very few. So for me, it's a matter of how we can distribute the value. Because globally, the value that will be created is huge, and we're going back again in like we create even more value for the planet. And the question is how we distribute this value to everyone, like more fairly.
Yeah,
basically.
so it's not necessarily limited to Hollywood and to the artist industry. I think it's a more global.
Yeah, I think every time we're like always the question is like, oh, are we destroying the work of artists? Are we like destroying value? Like overall, no. The question, the value that is created is. We're doubling, tripling, or even more, like it will go exponential. The question is how we can redistribute the value in a fair way for everyone.
Yeah, it's true. And actually, I had read this article not very long ago that really indicated that oftentimes the art industry reflects social issues, and like the things that artists are saying, this is an issue, this is a problem for me in terms of my job, my livelihood, how I'm being treated. Usually that's because many other industries are feeling the same things, but artists are valued in such a way that we tend to pay more attention.
We have another 2 minutes for the last question. Yeah, we have a question in the back of the room.
Yep.
Another one in front.
Going with the orange box. Who has a question?
Thank you. I don't think I heard you talk about intellectual property, and I was thinking about, like, I know Kinetix has been exploring with NFTs. Do you believe NFTs can solve that issue when we talk about customizing assets and then generating revenue from it when it comes from the help of generative AI? How does that work for you?
Yes, I'm completely convinced that it's one of the few values of NFTs. We were always against creating like collectibles and creating like a fake value. But I think in the way of like smart contracts being able to share the value and create a perpetuity, I think it has a huge value on redistributing the value from the original creator of a style or something. So I think like we explored NFTs in that sense, and we will keep exploring them in the future. As we're focusing on the gamers, and there are not a lot of gamers that are using NFTs, it's mostly investors for the moment. Once we will see more gamers using NFTs and creators, I think it has a huge potential on the royalty distribution and perpetuity. And I think this is the two strongest points of NFT for solving that.
There is another one, and another question. Yep. On the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, it depends.
Hi there. Hi. Yeah, I can't really see you, but that's okay. I'd like to know what's your thoughts on like softwares like Unreal Engine, for example, which is like taking the user experience and like creating different worlds to another level. I'd like to know your opinion.
I know a scenario where, I mean, it's a part of the ecosystem. We're actually actively working on a plugin with for Unreal Engine. So yeah, of course, the Unreal Engine is an awesome part of the gaming ecosystem, in my opinion.
Yeah, same here. We have a SDK for unplugging with Unity and Unreal. The question again is that these players like Unity just announced that they're releasing a lot of AI features. So yeah, will it be concentrated in one game engine and they will be having their own technologies? Will they be working with external plugins? We don't know how it play out in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Yassine. Thank you, Minta. Maybe an applause. And thank you, Emmanuel.